Chancellor, you know that you're doing this as fiscal drag as if student loans were a tax. But it's not a tax. It's a contract that the government signed with young people who had not been given any education on these loans. I do not think it is a moral thing for you to do.
Martin Lewis is calling on graduates to write to their MP about their student loans. The founder of Money Saving Expert knows everything there is to know about this issue, and it's a good thing because there is a lot of anger amongst students absorbing the changes announced in the last budget. Martin, I want to ask you first of all, as I head over there, why are so many up in arms?
So there's a growing anger, especially amongst those who have Plan 2 student loans, those who started in England and Wales in the 2012 to 2013 up to 2023 in England and still going in Wales. Now, they're the loans that have above inflation interest added on top. And I would say there are 4 reasons for the problem here. The first is for now well over 40 years, we've educated our youth into what we call a debt, but never educated them about debt. There should have been formal education at the point in senior school when you're applying for university, and university should have done formal education in the first when you get there, so people understood this. Second, fiscal drag. Freezing of the tax thresholds means effectively people are paying more money in tax. Graduates are feeling that. Many of them are moving to the higher rate band far earlier than they would have done before. Third, the big one, inflation. Obviously, the cost of living is hard for everybody, but people on Plan 2 loans have above inflation loans that are linked to inflation. So when we've had high inflation, their interest rates have gone up, and that has been particularly painful. And even though those rates have come down a little, well, you've still got a lot more now added on top of your loan, which makes it more difficult. And the final one is we're starting to see the graduate premium diminish. The extra money you earn from going to university, for some there isn't any, but for everybody has come down a little bit. And with the threat of AI to jobs, which is going to hit the professional classes most of all, that is looking even more scary for people in this particular cohort. And I think add that all together, that's the big picture. There's nuts and bolts too, but that's the big picture of anger.
Can I hone in on something that was announced by the Chancellor in the budget, which is she announced the freezing of the repayment thresholds. What impact does that have? And also, is the government just allowed to do that and change the sort of terms of the contract? So
the impact is everybody who is above the threshold will effectively pay more. It's frozen from 2027 to 2030. As a rough guess, and it's only a guess because I don't know what inflation will be, by 2030 you'll be paying £300 a year more than you do right now.
Right.
It's another form of fiscal drag. It's a freezing of the threshold. So these graduates will be facing double drag in effect. And I think that's a real problem. It's also particularly dangerous for low and middle earning graduates because they will be paying more, but it won't affect what they pay in 30 years. They will just be paying more. The very highest earning graduates, they will be paying more each month because the repayment threshold is frozen, but because they will be clear in the 30 years before the debt's wiped, they will actually pay less interest because of it. So arguably it's beneficial for the highest earners, but not for the majority. As for whether they can do this, well, look, in 2012, when these loans were launched, the Conservative government said, and these are contractual loans, your loan will rise the repayment threshold with average earnings from 2016-17. In 2015, they announced they were going to freeze it. I took legal advice over a judicial review at the time to try and take them to court, and we did a big campaign to stop the freezing of the threshold. The government caved in and they increased the threshold at the time. I can tell you now, the truth is, I was very glad because my legal advice said, you will not win.
Really?
You will not win.
Okay.
Now, we tried to change this in 2016. We had a campaign that said there should be no negative changes for existing contracts. You want to change for future students, that's a political issue. But it's an issue of natural justice if you change them on the existing contracts. And these loans should be regulated by the FCA. Do you know, we did a campaign, and do you know who the MP who tried to do amendments in Parliament to support it was? Then he was just a not that well-known backbench opposition MP. His name is Wes Streeting. He is now the Secretary of State for Health. He is a big name, and he said no negative retrospective changes, and it should be FCA rules. And now his colleague, the Chancellor, is freezing the repayment threshold. It shouldn't be happening.
Right. What do you say about some people watching who will say, look, you want to go to university, you take out the student loan, you have to pay for the tuition fees, you pay for your own education, and that's exactly how it should be. You know what the terms are, because OK, you didn't know about the freezing of the repayment thresholds, but you know what the terms are generally. You signed up to it.
While the student loan system is called a loan system and works more like a tax, most people are going to pay 9% of what they earn for 30 years, 70 to 80%, regardless.
Yeah.
You know, it is a contractual loan. You go abroad, you have to pay it. That's why it's not a tax. It was a contract. In the terms of that contract, when people signed up, they were told the repayment threshold would go up with average earnings. The maths was done on the back of that. I would say to anybody who's saying out there, well, hold on, people who didn't go to after university are going to have to pay for these people. You can have that argument.
Yeah.
I'm talking about natural justice.
Right.
Freezing the repayment threshold is a breach of natural justice. It would not be allowed for any commercial lender. It would go against all forms of consumer law. It's a breach of contract. It's a breach of promise. And while I don't think technically there's a legal leg to stand on here, there's a moral leg to stand on. The Chancellor knows what she's done, so writing to her won't help. But if all these people, these Plan 2 graduates who are affected by it, write to their MPs and say, this isn't on, this isn't what we were promised, we've got a contract with you and you are unilaterally changing the terms, and you tell companies they can't do that, you shouldn't do it either. I think that's a pretty strong argument. Who funds higher education's a totally different story.
OK. So that's your message to graduates. Write to your MP, put some pressure on. If Rachel Reeves is watching this evening, what would you say?
I would say, Chancellor, you know that you're doing this as fiscal drag as if student loans were a tax. But it's not a tax. It's a contract that the government signed with young people who had not been given any education on these loans. I do not think it is a moral thing for you to do to be freezing the repayment threshold in this way. It's not like tax that we know is variable. You didn't say the terms were variable. This isn't right. Please have a rethink.